They always said I was the black sheep, the odd one, the sensitive one, the one who didn't quite fit into the picture-perfect family portrait they liked to present to the world. But I never thought I'd be erased entirely until the lawyer opened that folder and read Grandma's will. I stood there, hands clenched tightly around my purse strap, trying to ground myself. The room was stiff with silence, except for the quiet rustle of paper and the occasional throat clear from the lawyer. Some silver-haired man with a voice like dry toast. My Uncle Rick lounged back in his chair too comfortable, a smug smile playing at the edge of his mouth. His Rolex glinted under the fluorescent light like it had something to say. Jenna sat beside him, her manicured nails tapping against her phone screen while Max slouched like he was already bored. Me? I was the last to sit, barely on the edge of the chair, trying not to show how much my legs were trembling. Then the words came. To my beloved son, Richard Morrison, I leave the house and the estate property located on my breath hitched. To my grandchildren, Jenna and Max, I leave my savings account and all valuable possessions contained therein. Nothing. Not a single word about me. Felt like someone had opened a trapdoor beneath me. I blinked rapidly, trying to make sense of it. I must have misheard. Maybe I'd missed a page. I opened my mouth, but no sound came. The lawyer looked up at me like he already knew what I was going to ask and didn't want to deal with it. That's when Max leaned over and said under his breath, but just loud enough for me to hear, "Guess she really meant it when she called you the black sheep." His voice was coated in fake sympathy. That kind of fake that made my skin crawl. I looked at him, forcing a smile I didn't feel, but my cheeks twitched from the effort. His eyes flicked away. He knew he'd hit a nerve. He always knew how to hit a nerve. Uncle Rick didn't say a word. He just folded his arms and tilted his chin like this had all gone exactly as he planned. And maybe it had. My heart was pounding, but I stayed quiet. What could I say? That there had to be some mistake? That Grandma Ruth would never leave me out like this, that she loved me. But what proof did I have? I could almost hear her voice, soft and warm, the way she used to whisper, "You're my heart, Emmy," when she tucked me in. That quilt she wrapped me in on stormy nights. Her hands gnarled with arthritis, brushing my hair back when I cried. All of it felt so real, and now it felt like a lie. I waited, hoping the lawyer would say more. A letter, a note, something, anything. But the folder closed with a dull snap. And that was it. It was over. "Thank you for coming," he said, already reaching for his next file. The others stood. Laughter, a clap on the back from Rick to Max. "Guess we'll be needing a U-Haul," Jenna said, flipping her hair. I walked out without a word. Not because I was okay, but because if I opened my mouth, I was afraid I wouldn't stop screaming. Back at my motel room, I dropped my keys on the chip dresser, sat on the edge of the bed, and just stared at the quilt Grandma had left me. It was folded neatly in the corner, blue and cream hand-stitched stars across the fabric. No one else wanted it. Of course they didn't. It wasn't worth anything, not to them. But for some reason, it was the only thing that made me feel like I hadn't been completely forgotten. And I didn't know it then, but that old quilt was about to change everything. I hadn't been back to Millfield in almost 8 years. The drive into town felt like rewinding a home video I wasn't sure I wanted to see. Again. The same rusted "Welcome to Millfield" sign. The same stretch of oaks bending over the road like old guardians. Everything looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I'd just grown too much. Grandma Ruth's house was still there, just off the dirt road, tucked behind the weeping willows she used to trim every spring. Porch swing creaked lazily in the breeze like it had been waiting for someone to sit. I stood at the edge of the gravel driveway, my fingers tightening around the strap of my bag, not ready to go inside, but not able to turn back either. The funeral had been the day before, short, cold, and full of faces I hadn't seen in years. No one hugged me. No one asked where I'd been. The whole thing felt more like a family reunion I hadn't been invited to. Growing up, Grandma's house had been the only place that ever felt safe. After Mom died when I was 12, she took me in without hesitation. Uncle Rick had offered to help, but even at 12 I could tell he didn't want the burden. Grandma never saw me as one. She gave me hot chocolate. When I cried, told me bedtime stories when I had nightmares, and sat through every one of my awkward school plays. She was everything. And yet, standing in that familiar yard, all I could feel was a strange emptiness, like something had been scooped out of me and nothing was left but air and ache. Inside the house, everything was just how she'd left it. The faint smell of lavender and cinnamon still lingered in the walls. Her worn slippers still by the door, a pair of reading glasses resting on the side. Table right next to the cup of tea she never finished. The silence was deafening. I wandered room to room, letting memories hit me like waves. Kitchen where she taught me how to bake her peach cobbler. The living room where we danced during Christmas to Nat King Cole. Her bedroom, now hollow and cold, where I used to sneak in during thunderstorms just to be near her heartbeat. That heartbeat was gone now. And the will, it felt like the final nail in the coffin. I tried to keep telling myself that maybe there was a reason. Maybe she'd been pressured, confused. Maybe someone forged it. I didn't want to believe she'd left me out on purpose. She couldn't have. Not Grandma Ruth. I sat on the floor of my old bedroom, legs crossed like I was 15 again. The wallpaper was peeling now, the posters gone, but it still felt like mine, like a ghost of who I used to be was sitting there beside me. That's when I saw it on the edge of the bed, a quilt, folded perfectly, just like she always did. I walked over and picked it up. Smelled like her, that blend of rose water and peppermint she always wore. My fingers brushed across the soft fabric, tracing the hand-stitched stars. I remembered her saying once, "Every star is a prayer." I pulled it close, wrapping it around my shoulders like armor. Didn't fix the ache, but it held it with me. And that meant something. I had no inheritance, no house, no apology, just this quilt. And yet it felt like Grandma had left me something more, something that no one else saw. I didn't know what yet, but I was starting to feel it. A whisper under the silence. A truth waiting to be found. I couldn't stop replaying it in my head. The lawyer's voice. The smug look on Uncle Rick's face. Max's whisper. "You were always the black sheep." Those words were like a splinter I couldn't dig out. Small, sharp, buried deep, and the more I tried to forget, the more it festered. That night I barely slept. I lay on the motel bed, staring at the ceiling, wrapped in Grandma's quilt like it could somehow shield me from the truth. My mind raced, with questions I'd never get answers to. Had Grandma really meant to leave me nothing? Was it some kind of punishment for not visiting enough? For leaving town, for living my own life? But no matter how I twisted the story in my head, it didn't fit. Grandma wasn't cruel. She wasn't forgetful either. She called me every birthday without fail. Sent care packages to my college dorm with handwritten notes and ridiculous socks. When I got laid off last year, she was the one who wired money without me even asking. And during our last call just weeks before she passed, she said, "There's something I want to give you when you come home." Something. I didn't know what, and I never got to ask. The next week, she was in the hospital. A stroke. No warning. I sighed, pushing the quilt off my shoulders. My fingers traced the stitching again, a nervous habit. That's when I felt it. A ridge right beneath the bottom star. I froze. It didn't feel like a lump in the fabric. It felt flat, folded like paper, heart pounding, I turned on the lamp and laid the quilt out on the bed. My fingers moved with urgency now, searching. And there it was, a hidden seam, tiny, almost invisible, but they're carefully hand-stitched. My breath caught. Grandma had sewn something into the quilt. I reached into the small pocket she'd hidden there and pulled out a folded envelope, thick and slightly yellowed at the edges. My name was written across the front in her familiar handwriting, Emily. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a letter, and beneath it a second envelope marked Revised Will. Notarized. I stared at it, stunned. I looked back at the letter, and my eyes immediately welled with tears. My dearest Emily, if you're reading this, then something went wrong. I updated my will last month after we spoke on the phone. I wanted to make sure you were taken care of. You've always been my heart, but I worried that Rick would try to interfere. That's why I asked my friend Marianne to notarize it quietly. I hid it here where I knew only you would find it. Don't let them take what I meant for you. Love always, Grandma. Ruth. I sat there completely still. The room seemed to tilt sideways. One moment I was grieving, the next I was furious. She had changed her will. She did want me to have something. Rick and his kids, they knew, or at least they suspected. That's why the smugness. That's why everything had felt so rehearsed, so final. I held the revised will in both hands like it was a flame, fragile and dangerous. Grandma had trusted me with this. Now it was up to me to do something about it. I didn't know where to start or who to trust. But I knew one thing. They thought they'd won. Thought I'd walk away quietly, but they had no idea what was coming next. I sat there for a long time, the letter clutched in one hand, the will in the other. My heart was pounding, not from grief now, but adrenaline, anger, and something else I hadn't felt in a while. Purpose. Grandma had left this for me. Thought a blanket, not just memories, a truth buried beneath fabric and time. She trusted me. The next morning I drove back to her house. I didn't tell anyone. I just needed to be there. Needed to walk through the rooms again with fresh eyes. I unlocked the front door, stepped into the quiet, and immediately felt her presence. Not like a ghost, like a warmth, a knowing. I walked into her study, the room no one had touched since the funeral. The door creaked as I opened it. Dust floated in the light, streaming through the lace curtains. I sat down at her desk and placed the letter and revised will gently in front of me. Then I took out my phone and started snapping photos of every page. That's when I noticed a business card tucked into the desk drawer. Marianne Forrester, Notary Public. I didn't hesitate. I dialed the number. A soft voice answered, "Hello." "Hi. My name is Emily Morrison. I believe you were friends with my grandmother, Ruth Morrison." Pause, then a warm exhale. "Oh, Emily. I was wondering when you'd call." I blinked. "You were?" She told me she hid it. Said you'd find it. Said you were clever like her. My throat tightened. "I found the will," I said quietly. "And the letter. I think they gave the wrong one to the lawyer." Another pause. Then I notarized the new one myself. Dated and stamped. It's legal. If it wasn't the one presented, something's wrong. Wrong. God, that word sat heavy on my chest. "Can I come see you?" "Of course. I still have the records." I drove straight to her house. An old yellow place at the end of Birch Street with a wraparound porch and wind chimes that tinkled softly in the breeze. Marianne was kind, maybe in her 70s, with warm brown eyes and hands that shook just slightly when she handed me a copy of the notary record. "Proves it's authentic," she said. "They ignored this, well, you might want to talk to a lawyer." So I did. Back at the motel, I sat cross-legged on the bed with my laptop and started searching. Not for revenge, not yet. I just wanted clarity. I found a small law firm nearby, one that specialized in wills and inheritance disputes. I called, explained everything in a rush of emotion, and they agreed to meet with me the next day. The lawyer's name was Danielle. Mid-30s, sharp eyes, and no patience for injustice. Bring everything, she told me. Photos, originals, your grandma's letter. We'll start there. So I did. And when I laid it all out on her desk, letter, revised will, notary verification, even pictures of the quilt, she looked at me for a long moment. This is airtight, she said finally. If they filed the old will knowing this one existed, that's not just a mistake. That's fraud. The word hit like a bell in my chest. Fraud. Suddenly, it wasn't just about a will. It was about Grandma's last wishes. About being erased, about them thinking I'd stay silent. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I want to fight, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. Danielle nodded. Then let's make sure they never forget what Grandma left behind. And just like that, the game changed. Courthouse was smaller than I expected. Just one floor, beige walls, old carpet that smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and nerves. I sat at the front with Danielle, my lawyer, my hands cold despite the June sun outside. The revised will sat neatly in a folder. Between us. Grandma's letter, too. I'd read it so many times it was burned into my memory. Every word felt like armor. Across the aisle sat Uncle Rick. He looked bored, annoyed even, like this hearing was an inconvenience between golf games. Jenna and Max were there too. Jenna flipping her hair like it was a habit. Max scrolling on his phone until the judge walked in. The judge was a tall woman with gray streaks in her hair and an expression that didn't allow for nonsense. She looked over the paperwork briefly, then turned to Danielle. You may proceed. Danielle stood with a quiet confidence that made me feel steadier. Your Honor, we are here today to contest the execution of Ruth Morrison's estate. The will previously presented by Richard Morrison is in fact outdated and invalid. We are submitting a notarized, legally binding revised will dated 3 weeks after the initial one with clear evidence of intent and witness. She handed the judge a copy. Rick leaned forward in his seat, his expression tightening. The judge raised an eyebrow. This is notarized. Yes, Your Honor. We have testimony from the notary as well as the original letter Miss Morrison found written by the deceased and hidden deliberately for safekeeping. Danielle passed her a copy of Grandma's letter. I watched the judge's eyes move across the page slowly. Then Rick stood. That letter could have been faked, he said, his voice controlled but shaky beneath the surface. My mother was ill, confused. My family, we took care of her. Emily hasn't been around for years. That last line hit me in the gut, but I didn't flinch. Danielle spoke up. Ruth Morrison was of sound mind at the time of the revision. The notary confirms this and has logs to prove her cognitive state was intact. Furthermore, we believe Mr. Morrison knowingly withheld the updated will. Courtroom went quiet. I glanced at Rick. His eyes darted away, but not before I saw it. That flicker of guilt. The judge cleared her throat. I've seen enough. She looked directly at me. Emily Morrison, as per the revised will and confirmed by legal testimony, you are the sole inheritor of Ruth Morrison's estate. This includes the family home, land, and remaining assets. I will file an official order reflecting this. The words hit like a wave. I couldn't speak. Rick's jaw tightened. Jenna gasped. Max muttered, You've got to be kidding. But I didn't look at them. I closed my eyes for a second and saw Grandma sitting in her kitchen, flour on her hands, humming to herself, her eyes full of light. Justice didn't erase the grief. Didn't bring her back, but it gave her voice back. And it gave me mine. Beside the courthouse, the sun was too bright and I had to blink to adjust. Danielle touched my shoulder. "You did it," she said softly. "No," I said. "Grandma did." I turned on my phone. Dozens of missed calls from Rick, from Jenna, from numbers I didn't recognize, but I ignored them. Instead, I texted Marianne. "We did it." She was heard. I walked to my car, the quilt folded in the back seat, and for the first time in weeks I wasn't carrying the weight alone. A few weeks after the court hearing, I moved into Grandma Ruth's house. It was strange at first, quiet in a way that felt too loud. Every corner held a memory. The faint squeak of the floorboard by the hallway closet. The wind chimes she loved still hanging outside the kitchen window. The garden out back wild and overgrown now, but still dotted with stubborn little daisies pushing through the weeds. I started every morning with coffee on the porch wrapped in that quilt. It had become more than a blanket. It was a lifeline, a reminder that sometimes love hides in quiet places, and sometimes it sews itself into fabric just waiting to be found. I didn't touch the money for a while, not because I didn't need it. I did, but because I wanted to feel what she'd given me first. I needed to sit in that space, to mourn her properly without the noise of lawyers or bitterness or the weight of what they tried to steal. Eventually, I decided to use some of the inheritance to restore the house. I didn't change much, just enough to bring it back to life. Repainted the porch swing, refinished the wood floors. I left the kitchen exactly as it was, though. That was hers. It always would be. I also started a small scholarship fund in her name. Something for kids like me. Quiet, overlooked, the so-called black sheep who just needed one person to believe in them. It wasn't huge, but it was a start. And the funny thing is, once the news spread about the court ruling, I never heard from Uncle Rick again. No apology, no explanation, just silence. First, I thought that would make me feel angry, vindicated even. But it didn't. What surprised me most was that I didn't feel anything for them anymore. I thought about what they tried to do. Erase me, cut me out, pretend I didn't matter. But the truth is, they never had the power to do that. Not really, because Grandma knew who I was. And more importantly, I finally did too. Growing up, I carried that label, black sheep. Like it was shameful, like there was something wrong with me for being different, for not fitting into their mold. But now I wear it like a badge. The black sheep isn't the failure. She's the one who breaks cycles, who asks questions, who walks away from what's easy to protect what's right. She's the one who holds the truth when everyone else buries it. Grandma Ruth saw that in me long before I ever could. And she gave me more than a house. She gave me a chance to rewrite my story. One night, I sat on the back porch looking up at the stars. The air was cool, the kind that makes you breathe a little deeper. I had the quilt around my shoulders. And for the first time, I didn't feel like something was missing. I felt full, grateful, free. And I realized something. Even when life tries to fold you into the background, even when the people closest to you try to silence your worth, the truth has a way of coming through. One stitch at a time. So, if you've ever felt like the black sheep in your own family, maybe it's because you were born to be the shepherd. Thank you for listening to my story. I know this one was heavy, but if it resonated with you even just a little, please let me know in the comments. Have you ever felt like the black sheep or discovered something that changed everything? I'd love to hear your story too. If this video meant something to you, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you're new here, welcome. I'd be so grateful if you subscribed and joined this little corner. of the internet where stories like this get to be heard. Till next time, take care of yourself and remember, sometimes the ones who don't fit the mold are the ones who were born to break.